inside the Senate chambers in Austin, Texas. It's going to be a big day at the state capitol. This is the room where we will soon hear closing arguments in the case against Attorney General Ken Paxton. He is accused of misusing his power to help his campaign donor, Nate Paul. If Paxton is convicted, he would be removed from office and possibly barred from holding any other political office in the future. You've heard us talk about the bench. It's a choose-your-own-adventure approach you won't get anywhere else with this trial. KPRC2 is giving you a range of ways to track the ins and outs of the case on TV, on our live stream, and of course our website, click2houston.com. On our bench team is Mario Diaz. He joins us live this morning from Austin. Mario, good morning.
Zach, good morning to you. Behind me is the Senate chamber. Both sides have rest. We are now awaiting the start of what is called closing arguments. Here is what we have learned from inside the chamber, what is to take place here in just a few minutes. You will have everyone convene. You will have the judge in this case. His name is Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, well known after 2 weeks. He will be reading through all the articles of impeachment that are on the table here. Remember, 20 articles out of the House that bounced. The Attorney General suspended him from office. They are only listening to 16 that they will be judging. After those articles of impeachment are read to the court, we are informed from that point you will have the closing arguments, and anticipate that from the prosecution side, we won't be seeing the big name attorneys like Rusty Hardin or Dick DeGuerin. What you're going to be seeing here are the House members, possibly two, if not just Andrew Mayer, the chair, come in and make the closing argument. A significant aspect to this case because you're not having someone who's been experienced throughout the course of this trial making that close. I want to bring in now Santosh Aravind. He is a white-collar criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor based here in Austin, someone who understands what's been going on behind the scenes there. Here we are on the brink of the closing and then a verdict. Your thoughts up to this point?
Well, Mario, last week we said this is a Super Bowl. We're in the last 2 minutes. This is closing arguments. This is an opportunity for both sides to pull together all the evidence and the testimony and give their final best shot at persuading the jurors that their side is the right one.
If this is the Super Bowl, are we looking at a tie game, or does somebody have the advantage and needs either a field goal or a touchdown to come back and win it?
You know, if this was a normal criminal trial, I would say that the prosecution has a slight advantage because I feel like their case really rests on those 6 whistleblowers. If the jury finds that those individuals are credible, I think they get past the finish line. But this isn't a typical jury. We're dealing with members of the Senate who are the jurors, and there are political considerations here that are different than a normal trial.
And we didn't see certain witnesses. You mentioned the 6 whistleblowers, and you have to keep in mind we saw 6 key whistleblowers to this case that took to the stand, and several of them, I should say, not all 6, but they testified on behalf of the prosecution, really saying what happened here. But you didn't see specific witnesses from the defense side, and we didn't see certain people get called up. One of those in particular, Laura Olson. We have video of her. Laura Olson was walking right behind here the other day. She is the mistress in this case. Why is that significant for you?
Well, I think everyone was really interested in that moment when she was going to take the stand. And she said she was, or the lawyer said she was deemed unavailable. That's a code word, I think, for her pleading the Fifth Amendment and refusing to testify. That was a critical moment because I think it prevented the House managers from really exploring the issue of Nate Paul protecting Paxton's through his relationship with this alleged mistress, Miss Olson. That is a big blank spot, and we really don't have a ton of testimony about that.
All right, Santosh, I'm going to have you stand right here. If you don't mind, keep it right there. Bill Miller, I'm going to bring you in now, Austin insider, a historian here in Austin in many ways. You know this building better than anybody. You heard Santosh here just a moment ago call this the Super Bowl. How do you view this in terms of who's up, who isn't?
I think we're in sudden death. I think the game's over. We're in sudden death, and whoever scores the points in the closing will win the match.
How taxing has this been to both parties in terms of their perception when they come out of this trial?
Well, I think that everybody's given it their all. I think everybody's put forth their best effort, and you can see it in more kind of the body language, if you will. There's fatigue set in. Now we're highlighting the finish.
And does this change the scope of politics in Texas moving forward?
Yes, I absolutely think it will change the complexion of politics and what people think and what people do and the survival of certain people in their respective positions.
All right, I want to get both your perspectives on this because this has been significant here. Ken Paxton has only been here for the opening statements, and that was it. He pled and he got out of here. Your thoughts on that, Bill?
I've said all along that I didn't think he should be here, that he would be a distraction. You don't need any distractions whatsoever in this trial.
Santosh?
And if I'm the House managers, I tell that jury, you had to sit through this for 2 weeks, and one person wasn't here who should have been here, and it was Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton went to X, formerly Twitter, the other night, said, hey, I'm going to answer questions about this, except I'm going to do it in Maine next week with Tucker Carlson. Not inside that room, not with members of the court, not in front of his wife. Was that a smart tweet or X to put out there, Bill, at this time?
I believe he should have kept his mouth shut and shouldn't be talking publicly about anything with respect to his comings and goings and efforts to talk about this issue.
Santosh, it's not evidence, but how does that impact a jury?
I agree. I mean, the jury, remember, there's a gag order. They're not supposed to be looking at their phones. They're not supposed to be looking at the media reports. But I'm sure this jury, these members of the Senate, are getting that information, are seeing those tweets. It may have an impact. I'm not really sure.
All right. Santosh Arvind, thank you so much. Again, he's a former federal prosecutor out of New York City, been based here in Austin. The firm again?
Scott Douglas and McConaughey.
And he's been dealing with public corruption cases back to New York City. I remember those cases back then. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to see you throughout the course of the day. Bill Miller, Austin legend, thank you so much again for joining us. Appreciate it. Again, to break things down here very quickly, expect at 9 o'clock the Lieutenant Governor to come out, read these articles of impeachment from their closing arguments to both sides. Again, the House managers will be the one doing the close from what I have learned from insiders inside that chamber, and then they will go back behind the scenes. There will be a deliberation period. It's a research period, for lack of a better term. There will be a vote. It will be not done publicly within the Senate room. They will just be writing documents, their names down on a piece of paper, how they feel. They will come back out into this chamber. They will announce the votes. At that point, we will know the fate of the suspended Attorney General of Texas. In Austin, Mario Diaz, KPRC 2 investigates.